Hello, and welcome to Cognitive Drift. Some people hear that line and dismiss it as arrogant. Others hear it and recognize something simple but profound, that our understanding of reality is shaped by our own ability to think, to question, and to measure truth for ourselves. Over the past few decades, there's been a noticeable shift. More and more intelligent, educated people are stepping away from organized religion, not necessarily because they've suddenly become rebellious or cynical, but because they've examined the beliefs they grew up with and found them lacking. This isn't about hostility toward those who are religious. It's about a growing awareness that certain claims about reality, morality, and meaning don't hold up when weighed against evidence, reason, and lived experience. One of the strongest factors is access to information. For most of human history, religious institutions controlled much of the knowledge people had about the world. Scriptures, interpretations, and teachings were presented as the ultimate source of truth. Today, with the internet, scientific research, and global communication, people can explore ideas from countless perspectives without a gatekeeper filtering them. That kind of openness makes it much harder for exclusive truth claims to survive unchallenged. An intelligent mind naturally looks for patterns. It asks questions like, if my religion says it is the one true path, why do thousands of others claim the same? Why do ancient stories from different cultures share similar myths, miracles, and moral codes, even when their gods and prophets are completely different? When someone starts connecting those dots, they often see religion less as a divine revelation and more as a cultural product, a reflection of the time and place it came from, with all the limitations and biases that go with it. There's also the issue of moral progress. In many traditions, sacred texts contain rules that clearly reflect the values of ancient societies. Rules about slavery, gender roles, sexuality, or punishment. Over centuries, humans have built more humane moral frameworks by moving beyond those old codes. The irony is that religious institutions often resist these changes until they become unavoidable. Then, they reinterpret their texts to make it seem as if the moral shift was part of the plan all along. When intelligent people notice this pattern, they see a system that adapts only under social pressure, not because of any divine foresight. That doesn't inspire confidence in the claim that morality comes from religion. Another factor is the sheer inconsistency of doctrine. Within a single faith, you can find multiple branches that disagree completely about essential beliefs, whether it's about creation, the afterlife, or salvation. And yet, each group is convinced they have the correct interpretation of God's will. For a person trained to think critically, this isn't a sign of truth. It's a sign that humans are projecting their own views into sacred texts and calling it divine authority. Science plays a major role too. Over the last century, we've gained a deeper understanding of the universe than any ancient writer could have imagined. We know the Earth is billions of years old, that species evolve through natural selection, that diseases are caused by microbes, not by sin or curses. These discoveries don't just add to our knowledge. They often directly contradict religious explanations. And when the evidence is overwhelming, intelligent people are more likely to trust the data than an ancient story. And yet, it's not just about science disproving miracles or creation myths. It's also about the way science models thinking itself. The scientific method teaches us to test ideas, to be willing to change our minds when the evidence demands it. Religion, by contrast, often starts with a conclusion. This is the truth, and works backward to defend it. That difference in mindset can make religion feel intellectually confining to someone used to open-ended inquiry. Some leave religion because of personal contradictions. They might be told that God is all-loving, yet also punishes people for eternity for the crime of disbelief. They might be told that prayer changes the world, yet see that it has no measurable effect when tested. These aren't minor doubts. They strike at the heart of whether the claims being made are consistent with reality. There's also the global perspective. When you grow up in one religious tradition, it can feel obvious that yours is the truth. But once you travel, study history, or engage with people from other cultures, you see that the obvious truth changes depending on where and when you were born. That realization alone is enough for many intelligent people to question whether their faith is anything more than an accident of geography. And perhaps one of the most under-discussed reasons is the desire for intellectual honesty. When you value truth over comfort, it can be difficult to keep believing something you suspect isn't true. Even if that belief once gave you a sense of meaning or community, living with cognitive dissonance can become exhausting. For many, leaving religion isn't about rejecting meaning. It's about seeking a more honest, consistent foundation for it. Some people worry that stepping away from religion means stepping away from morality, but the evidence doesn't support that fear. Across the world, highly secular societies often have lower crime rates, higher levels of trust, and stronger social safety nets than more religious ones. This isn't because people suddenly stop caring about right and wrong when they leave religion. It's because morality comes from empathy, cooperation, and shared human needs, not from fear of punishment or hope of reward. Intelligent people tend to notice that when morality depends on authority rather than reason, it can be bent to justify almost anything. History is full of examples where deeply religious leaders used faith to defend atrocities, from wars of conquest to systemic oppression. In each case, the beliefs were framed as unchangeable truths, until they weren't, until society moved on, leaving the religious justification behind. Another reason people leave is the way religion sometimes discourages honest doubt. In many faith communities, asking too many questions can be seen as a lack of faith or even as a moral failing. For someone who values curiosity and critical thinking, that creates an environment where truth is less important than loyalty. It becomes clear that the system isn't designed to find the truth. It's designed to preserve itself. This realization often comes slowly. Maybe it starts with noticing how religious explanations shift when they're challenged, or how difficult questions are deflected with appeals to mystery. An intelligent mind recognizes when it's being asked to stop thinking at the exact point where thinking is most needed. There's also the psychological aspect. Religion often promises certainty, a clear set of answers about life, death, and what comes after. That can be comforting. But intelligent people know that comfort and truth aren't the same thing. In fact, the promise of certainty can sometimes be a red flag. The world is complex and full of unknowns, and any system claiming to have all the answers without room for doubt starts to look suspicious. In some cases, the turning point is deeply personal. It could be seeing a tragedy strike a devoted believer and realizing that faith offers no real protection from the randomness of life. It could be experiencing the sting of exclusion, being told you or someone you love is unacceptable to God for something beyond their control. These moments break through abstract debate and make the problems of belief painfully real. And once a person steps back and starts looking at religion from the outside, they notice how much of it depends on reinforcement. Sermons, rituals, group activities. These all serve to keep the belief system active in the mind. Without that constant input, the ideas can start to fade, replaced by other ways of understanding life that don't rely on the supernatural. Some people find that their values actually become stronger after leaving religion. They no longer have to defend ideas they don't believe in or twist their morality to fit an ancient text. They can build an ethical framework that adapts to new knowledge and changing circumstances without the fear that they're betraying a higher power. There's also a broader cultural pattern at play. As education levels rise, belief in supernatural explanations tends to fall. This isn't just a coincidence. Education trains people to question sources, evaluate evidence, and think probabilistically, skills that often conflict with the absolute certainty demanded by religious dogma. When you learn to weigh claims based on their likelihood, it becomes harder to accept extraordinary claims without extraordinary proof. And this isn't just about universities or formal schooling. The rise of accessible online learning has put the tools of critical thinking in the hands of millions who never set foot in a lecture hall. Podcasts, documentaries, and open courses expose people to scientific reasoning, philosophy, and history in ways that were once rare. Intelligent people often notice that religious belief can be geographically predictable. If you can guess someone's religion based on where they were born, that suggests it's more a product of culture than of universal truth. And when someone sees their faith in that light, as one tradition among thousands, each with its own exclusive truth claims, it becomes harder to maintain the belief that theirs is uniquely correct. Some who leave also cite the problem of divine hiddenness. If there really is an all-powerful being who wants to be known and loved by everyone, why is that being so silent? Why is the evidence so ambiguous that entire libraries are filled with debates about it? For many, the simplest answer is that the silence isn't a test. It's just the absence of a presence. The more people study religion from a historical and anthropological perspective, the more they see how beliefs evolve. Gods come and go across centuries. Rituals change. Even sacred doctrines shift when social needs demand it. These patterns look less like the unfolding of a timeless divine plan and more like the way human cultures adapt to survive. And once you see religion as a human invention, it's hard to unsee it. For some, leaving religion also means confronting the way it shapes identity. When belief is tied to family, community, and tradition, questioning it can feel like betrayal. This makes the decision to walk away far more difficult than simply changing an opinion. Intelligent people often weigh the social cost carefully. They know that losing belief can also mean losing belonging. And yet, they choose honesty over conformity. Part of that comes from recognizing that genuine relationships can't be built on pretending to believe something you don't. Keeping quiet might avoid conflict, but it also creates a distance between who you are and how others see you. For many, that tension becomes too heavy to carry. Another factor is the growing awareness of cognitive biases. Modern psychology has made it clear that humans are prone to seeing patterns that aren't there, to remembering selectively, and to accepting claims that confirm what they already believe. When intelligent people learn about these mental shortcuts, they start applying that knowledge to their own beliefs. They realize that the evidence they once found convincing, answered prayers, feelings of divine presence, coincidences, might be explainable by natural psychological processes. And this is where the process often shifts from doubt to clarity. Once you see how the human mind can generate a sense of certainty without corresponding evidence, it becomes harder to trust those feelings as proof of the supernatural. There's also the issue of exclusivity. Many religions teach that they alone hold the truth, and that all others are mistaken at best, doomed at worst. For someone who values fairness and open-mindedness, this can feel deeply wrong. They see good, compassionate people in every faith, and outside of any faith, living meaningful lives. The idea that goodness or salvation is locked behind one set of rituals and beliefs starts to seem not just unlikely, but unjust. Technology plays an unexpected role here too. In earlier generations, most people's understanding of religion was shaped by the local congregation and maybe a few books. Now, anyone can watch debates between leading scientists and theologians, read critiques of scripture, or study religious history from multiple cultural perspectives. The information gap that once protected belief is shrinking fast. Some leave because they notice how religion can be used as a tool for control. Rules about personal behavior, gender roles, and sexuality often go far beyond spiritual matters, shaping how people live in ways that benefit the institution rather than the individual. Once you see how power and belief intertwine, it becomes difficult to believe that every command is purely for your good. And then there's the reality of unanswered prayers. For many believers, prayer is more than ritual. It's a lifeline. But when they keep records, or when they honestly evaluate the outcomes, they see that events unfold much as they would without prayer at all. The successes and failures match the probabilities of chance. That realization doesn't just weaken belief in a specific practice, it can unravel the entire framework that supports it. Some find that leaving religion actually deepens their sense of wonder. Without a ready-made explanation for everything, the world feels larger, more mysterious. Curiosity replaces the need for certainty, and that curiosity often leads to a richer engagement with reality. It's worth noting that this process doesn't happen overnight. Intelligent people often spend years wrestling with questions, reading, and discussing before making the final break. The decision to leave usually comes after every possible effort to reconcile belief with evidence has been exhausted. That persistence shows that the choice isn't about impulsiveness. It's about integrity. Once the decision is made, many describe a sense of relief, not because life becomes easier, but because they no longer have to force their worldview to match what they've been told. They can follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if that means admitting, "I don't know." And perhaps that's one of the biggest differences. In religion, "I don't know" is often seen as a weakness, something to be resolved by faith. Outside of religion, it can be seen as an honest starting point, a sign of openness rather than ignorance. That shift in mindset can be liberating. Over time, people who've left religion often build new communities, not based on shared belief in the supernatural, but on shared values, curiosity, and mutual respect. These connections can be just as strong, if not stronger, because they're not held together by fear of divine punishment or the need to conform. For the intelligent person, Leaving religion isn't just about rejecting certain claims. It's about choosing a way of life that matches how they think and what they know. It's about building meaning on a foundation that doesn't require them to deny the evidence of their own eyes and mind. One of the subtler reasons intelligent people leave religion is the growing understanding of how stories shape belief. Myths, parables, and sacred narratives aren't unique to any one tradition. They're a universal human phenomenon. Cultures around the world have creation stories, flood stories, resurrection stories. When you study them side by side, you see striking similarities, not because they all stem from the same divine source, but because human imagination tends to produce similar themes when trying to explain the unknown. The more you see this pattern, the more each religion's claim to uniqueness starts to fade. The miracles once thought to be unmatched begin to look like variations on a recurring human template. Some people come to realize that the fear of questioning itself is part of the problem. In certain traditions, doubt is seen as dangerous, something to suppress. But in every other part of life, questioning is how we grow and learn. We question history to uncover the truth. We question science to refine our understanding. We question politics to hold leaders accountable. Why should belief in the supernatural be the one area where questions are off limits? Another under-discussed reason is how religion can encourage passivity in the face of injustice. If suffering is framed as part of a divine plan or as a test to be endured for future reward, there's less urgency to change the conditions causing it. Intelligent people often feel a responsibility to act in the here and now, rather than waiting for a promised world to come. There's also the personal integrity aspect. If you no longer believe but keep practicing for appearances, you risk living inauthentically. For some, this dissonance is tolerable for a while, but over time, it corrodes self-respect. The decision to step away becomes less about rejecting religion and more about aligning your outer life with your inner truth. And here's something that's often overlooked. Letting go of religion doesn't mean letting go of awe. In fact, many describe feeling a deeper sense of awe when they realize that everything they see, from the smallest cell to the largest galaxy, is the result of natural processes. The beauty isn't diminished by the lack of a supernatural cause. It's enhanced by the knowledge that it emerged from the raw fabric of reality itself. For the intelligent person, the choice isn't framed as abandoning faith so much as moving toward intellectual honesty. It's a refusal to pretend that certainty exists where it doesn't, and a willingness to live with unanswered questions if the answers on offer don't hold up. The philosopher Bertrand Russell once wrote, "It is undesirable to believe a proposition when there is no ground whatever for supposing it true." That sentiment captures the quiet strength behind this shift. It's not about anger. It's not about rebellion. It's about choosing a worldview that doesn't require you to believe first and justify later. And so more and more intelligent people are stepping away from religion, not because they've lost something, but because they've found something else. The freedom to follow truth wherever it leads, and the courage to accept reality even when it's uncertain.